Hello, I'm Sean with Booksource, the company that created Booksource Classroom. I'll be your guide through a series of videos that will help you better understand Booksource Classroom and its many features. Today we're going to talk about how to enable and disable preferences in your account. Now, to get to the settings page, which is what I'm on right now, you'll just need to go to the left-hand side on this menu here, go under Account, and then Settings. Go ahead and click that, and that will take you to this page. If you're on a mobile device, you can also get there from the main menu on the mobile device. So in order to enable and disable preferences, we're going to look at this first box here that says Enable Disable Preferences. Pretty much everything in Booksource Classroom is toggleable, and what that means is you can toggle it on and off. We know that every classroom is different, every school is different, and there are many different ways to do the same job. So some teachers have different ways of running their classroom than other teachers. And our preferences in Booksource Classroom give you all sorts of options to tailor this program to exactly what you need. So under the preferences, we have ratings and reviews first. You can choose whether you want to prompt students for ratings and reviews at return. You can choose if you want to show students each other's approved reviews. Now, why would you want to have reviews come in but then not show them to students? Well, maybe you want to use them for your own administrative purposes, where you want to be able to read what students are saying about books and maybe use that as part of your grading curriculum. The other option here is overdue books. Now, this is library software, so of course most people track overdue books, but your classroom may be different and you might not want to even track it. So you can toggle that on and off. Now, if you do track overdue books, it defaults to 5 days when they become overdue, but you can also change this to whatever you want. It can go up to 3 weeks. The most typical thing that we see is 5 days. That's the typical timeline. Returning books. Now, this is something that we cover in another video, which is about automatic quarantine of books. But basically, whenever you enable automatic quarantine, if a book is checked in by a student or it's checked in by you, the teacher, it will automatically go into a quarantine status. And what that means is it will not be shown to other students until it's out of the quarantine status. This is done for the health of the students if you want to make sure books are disinfected. It's going to default to 5 days, but again, you can change this to whatever you want. It can go up to 3 weeks. Now, you don't have to enable quarantine, and you could also just enable forced manual putback of books. And as it says here, when students return books, they will not appear available again until you mark them as put back. That's because a lot of teachers have their books in a certain spot on the shelf. And when students check in books using this software, it doesn't necessarily mean that the book's actually on the shelf. So if you say that you want to force manual putback of books, it will force you to say, yes, that book is now on the shelf and ready to be checked out again, and only then will it show up to students. You can force manual putback of books without automatic quarantine, but if you enable automatic quarantine, you also have to do the manual putback of books. The reason is the quarantine would mean that you have the book sitting somewhere else in the classroom in quarantine. And so whenever it runs out of quarantine, it doesn't just magically appear on the shelf again. You have to actually put it back on the shelf, so that way you and students will know exactly where it's at. So this is also 2 different options as far as returning books. When checking out a title with multiple copies available, you can require a copy ID to be selected. This is particularly helpful if you really want to manage all of your copies in your library, and you really want to know exactly who has exactly what copy. So you can tell that student, well, whenever you check out this book, I want to know which copy you have. Otherwise, we really don't know which one, and Booksource Classroom will just assign it to the first copy that's available. You can say that you have a USB barcode scanner attached, and that might help you actually in scanning books in. The system will know that you have one attached. This is completely optional, and it's actually a legacy feature that's only used in the old library page. The old library page is going to be going away soon, so I wouldn't really worry about this one. So students, you can require students to enter a password. This is usually only something we recommend for higher grade levels. So if they're, say 6th grade and you're worried about students logging into each other's accounts and checking out books on their behalf, you can require passwords to be entered. You can also say that you want to enforce a maximum number of books to be checked out per student. So I don't want students to be able to check out any more than 3 books at any given time. If I were to save this setting with this no more than 3 books, when I were to go to the student area up here and try to check out books, as soon as I hit 3 and then I went to check out another book, it would say, nope, you can't check out any more books because you already have 3. Please check in a book and return one, and then you will be able to check out another book. So this is helpful if you want to make sure that students aren't checking out too many books all at one time. For my classroom, I'm going to go ahead and leave this off. Now, custom fields, we cover this in another video in which we specifically cover custom fields, and that is conditions, locations, and genres, but I'll briefly cover it here. So if you want to, you can track conditions, completely optional. Now, if you track conditions, there are a few advantages to this. For one thing, on the dashboard, there is a report that actually recommends books that need to be replaced based on condition. We will know, based on the condition that's entered, if that book needs to be replaced or not. It does not have to have this category or this condition that says needs replaced. It could be torn pages. Well, if you have torn pages, you should probably look at replacing the book. And our system will automatically recommend it, will tell you how much the book costs, and you can easily add it to a cart or a wish list in order to get that book purchased. But you can also prompt for condition at checkout and return. Now, why would you want to do this? Well, the obvious part is it shows who's accountable for damage that's occurring in the library. So if that student is checking out a book and it's in good condition, but when they check it in, it's in bad condition, that's something that you might want to know. You can then find out what exactly happened to that book, or you can track if certain students are continually damaging books. Again, this is important if your students are using this digital software to check out books in and out of your library. You might not have as much hands-on activity with the books. So this is something that could help. Now, you can add any condition in here that you want. It could literally be anything, and just to prove it, I'm going to type in anything. Add the condition, and here we go. So now whenever students check out a book, since I prompt them for the condition, they can choose this as a condition whenever they check it out. Of course, this is not something you typically want to use, so I'm just going to delete it. Now, locations, same thing. You can add as many locations as you want, and they can be whatever you want. This is important for if you have things in a certain bin, or you have them categorized by a certain sticker. You might say that these are all yellow sticker, or these are all in bin A, or bin 1, 2, 3, maybe even shelf location. That's all important things to know because it will help the students in actually finding the books on the shelf. And it will also help you in putting the books back on the shelf if you use manual putback, since we let you print out the list and it will have the location data right there with every single copy that needs put back. Genres, we have another video that covers the difference between genres and Booksource subjects, and we also have another video that covers Booksource subjects in detail. But what you need to know is that genres are different than Booksource subjects. These are things that you apply to the book, tags that you apply. And our subjects usually aren't really genres. They're not so much, fantasy fiction or sci-fi. We don't really tag those sorts of things. Instead, we actually tag really specific subjects, like financial hardship, for example. That might be a very specific subject that we assign to a book. So you can assign genres if you want, and then you can show those genres to students. Now, how do you show the genres to students? You can go down here to show hide data. So teacher library data over here, this is also deprecated, and it's a legacy feature that's only used in the old library page. And as I mentioned, that page is going to be going away since we've been using the new library page for quite some time now. And so I wouldn't really worry about this section so much. It won't really affect you unless you're using that original library page. But the student library data, this is still in use. So you can choose what you want to show up to students whenever they're checking out a book. So I can say I want guided reading level, the Lexile and AR level. I want fiction, nonfiction, and let's say that I want the annotation to show up. I'm going to go ahead and save this setting. Okay, settings have saved, and actually let me go ahead and add Booksource subjects as well. That would be interesting to see. Okay, so now let's go to the student area, and I'll show you what that just did. I'm going to just choose a random group here. Let's choose group A, Billy W. I'm going to check out and read. And as you can see here, I said that you can't check out any books if you have books that are overdue. And that's also a preference that we already went over. And so this is something that might show up if you have that preference enabled. But in the meantime, Billy can still flip these books over. And they can say, okay, well, I really want to read this one. Flip it over, and it has all the information that I said I wanted to show. It has all the Booksource subjects. It has the fiction, nonfiction. It has the reading levels, and it has that annotation. Same thing for this book. Okay, I can read the entire annotation of that book, the entire description, before I actually check out that book. So you can see that these preferences are very helpful for your students as well. Now, I hope that that helped you understand a little bit more about Booksource Classroom, and thank you for taking the time to learn more about Booksource Classroom. Be sure to check out the other helpful videos that we have in this channel.